Today's request is from my new friend Steve from Nevada, who reached out to me by email, who had stumbled across the channel by looking for an effective way to clean a Bireley's bottle that he found. He asked if I could find something on the bottle, so let's see what turned up on this episode of Antique Bottle Stories. This is an article titled History of Bireley's Told in Pictures. So let's start here. It's dated in 1942. It starts by saying, not so many years ago, the orange was a luxury, a delicacy put in Christmas stockings. I actually remember hearing stories like this. I remember seeing a video of a couple who had been married, I don't know how many years, but they started dating because he had come across an orange and it was so rare and he gave it to her. It goes on to say that the home of the first orange was in China. Portuguese sailors took the fruit to Europe and introduced it to Spain. Columbus may have even brought oranges to the New World. Sometime after 1769, the Franciscans brought the orange from Mexico to California. It says the first orange grove was planted about 10 miles northeast of Los Angeles. They give a few names of the first planters in this area. By the Civil War, there were hundreds of acres planted with oranges, and it says here the oranges became the pride of Southern California. It says 1873, a Miss Eliza Tibbets of Riverside, California, received 2 small navel orange trees from the Department of Agriculture in Washington, D.C. When these trees fruited, the navel oranges proved to be superior to any variety produced up till that time. A few years later, about 1876, the Valencia orange was received by a Thomas Rivers from London. The Valencia would end up being the nation's favorite, and it was also the orange used in Bireley's beverage. It turned out that the navel oranges would ripen in the fall and the winter months, being picked from November to May, while the Valencias would ripen from April to November. So California was constantly growing and harvesting oranges year-round. It says visitors who come to California see orange groves everywhere they go. Hundreds of miles of endless oranges, 24 million trees, over 300,000 acres. It says there's been so much study and care put into the growing of oranges, pest control, frost prevention, and fertilization, etc. 70,000 cars, meaning train cargo cars, supply the US, Canada, and foreign markets. It says, although we've had oranges for about 150 years now, it was Frank Bireley who conceived the idea of making an orange juice beverage available to the nation. So now we are up to the Frank Bireley story. Frank Bireley was born in Los Angeles, California in 1899. This article, written in 1939, says that in 1923, Frank was a student at Stanford University trying to earn money. He bought himself an orange squeezer. It says he worked from before sunup until well into the night, slicing and squeezing oranges. He would then sell the juice to restaurants, hotels, and campus eating clubs. Only 2 months into his business venture, his tiny business had grown so much that he had to leave university. He moved to Hollywood, where he purchased orange squeezing machines that would squeeze over 144 million oranges a year. It says now, 16 years later, every morning, oranges pull up by the train loads. It says the oranges are washed, sliced, and squeezed by automatic extractors. Then the juice is concentrated in a vacuum machine that Bireley invented. Then it's pasteurized, and then finally sealed in cans for shipment. The article that we began with, from 1942, says that he's known as the Orange Juice King. It says he's made every effort to go back and finish his senior year in college, but his million-dollar business keeps tugging at his coattails, making it impossible. Okay, so this article is 19 years in, so let's back up and fill in some of the gaps. This article from 1927, about 4 years after his business started, it says, Frank Bireley, general manager of the Golden Orange Products Company, has found a way to beat the business bugaboo, which will keep so many football fans from the game Saturday. He left for Palo Alto Thursday morning, piloting his own Waco plane. It goes on to say that Bireley has owned his own plane for more than a year. He has piloted it more than 10,000 miles and says he saves on traveling time. Another article from 1927 also mentions his travels by airplane. In 1929, here's a photo of Frank Bireley, and it's talking about air show plans being made, and it mentions that Frank is secretary of the California Aircraft Exposition Association. He resigns from that position a few months after that article with a new secretary elected. The 1930 census shows 30-year-old Frank living with his parents along with one of two of his sisters. It shows he's the owner of a business which is listed as Fruit Products. In 1931, a newspaper article says Dick Terry of Los Angeles has made more than 100 parachute jumps during the past year just for the fun of it. Here you see Terry in a close-up leaving a plane piloted by Frank Bireley and coming down for a happy landing. In 1931, National Aeronautical Association has elected Frank Bireley as its president. Now, staying on the subject of his flying, you know the actress Swoosie Kurtz? Well, Frank Bireley plays a part in her story. Well, this is a photo of her parents. Apparently her mom, Margot, wrote a book about some of their adventures, and Google will only let me view a few partial pages of the story, but from what I was able to read, Frank Bireley taught Swoosie's dad, also named Frank, how to fly when he was about 16. Apparently both Franks had many adventures flying together. Another publication says that he was survived by his daughter Swoosie Kurtz, who is surely the only actress named for an airplane. The plane was called the Swoos, after a Kay Kaiser song about Alexander the Swoos, who's a creature that was half swan, half goose. It says, the plane was cobbled together in Australia early in the war from parts of several B-17s that somehow survived the Japanese attack on Clark Field in the Philippines hours after Pearl Harbor. That's pretty interesting. So moving on, in 1934 is the first time that I came across an ad for Bireley's Orangeade. It's 5 cents a bottle, 12 cents for a quart. In 1935, dairy farms started distributing Bireley's orange juice. This one's in Oklahoma. Now here's one in Knoxville, Tennessee, saying that the milkmen have started delivering the orange juice now, and it goes on to say that we have the equipment to prepare and bottle Bireley's, and we are in a position to keep the flavor uniform and guarantee its quality. It also says quality dairies in hundreds of cities are distributing Bireley's with their milk. Last year, it took first place as the fastest selling fruit juice beverage and is running up for first place among all 5-cent soft drinks. Now this paper, like a week later, states that over 1,000 milk dealers in as many cities are distributing Bireley's. Now this article claims it is the largest selling fruit beverage. It's around this time that the health benefits of the orange juice were being studied, mainly in the vitamin C, and how if they received no other source of vitamin C, a glass a day would be sufficient to protect them against scurvy. It also goes on to talk about how much proteins, fats, carbohydrates, and minerals and vitamins one should consume. The following year, more dairies are adding Bireley's to their distribution. 1936, this one says that Frank Bireley is the biggest customer of the California orange growers and sells his product all over the world. Now I'm interested to know how he gets his orange juice to the whole world, being that it needed to be refrigerated. It stated in one of the previous dairy articles that they keep the orange juice refrigerated like they do the milk. Here's a 1937 ad, and if you look, they are putting the orange juice in milk bottles. These are pretty cool bottles. This 1935-1936 assessment of the company by Department of Agriculture says that Bireley's is misleading in some of its statements, deceiving the purchaser, saying it contains true orange juice, but it also contains added color, acid, and sugar, and it continues on, but it doesn't really say whether they were in trouble for it or if anything was being done about it. I really didn't look into what this article was about. It seems like just a list of important people in Hollywood, California, and Frank Bireley is listed. It says, President of Bireley's Incorporated, Hollywood. Makers of Bireley's Orangeade, the original, distributed by U.S. and Canadian dairies. Now this one doesn't look good. 1939. Bireley's took a net loss for the year of 1938. He says sales were down almost $500,000 from 1937. Now here's a full page ad in the paper. This actually shows there are a few more flavors. Orange, tomato cocktail, grape, and lemon nip. Lemon nip, apparently. We don't get much information on his personal life, but here's a look in his household in 1940. He's 40, and he's married to Christine Harriet, who's 23, and they have 2 babies, a boy and a girl at this time. In February 1940, things seem to look a little better. Bireley's reports profits for 1939. But a few months later in April, a conflicting report with a net loss for 1939. Now I thought this was pretty cool. 1942, there's a soft drink softball league. Coca-Cola, Bireley's, and Grapette from different cities are playing games. And here's the top 20 batters. And here's a few from July 1942 talking about some events from their all-star games. Now we are all caught up to our original story that we started with in 1942. It says, not only did he develop the squeezing equipment, but he perfected a new process of concentrating and canning where the juice retains its flavor and food value without the use of artificial preservatives. It says it ships enough juice from Bireley's monthly to make an estimated 58 million bottles to their customers nationwide. Now here's a glimpse of the process, the orange groves where the oranges are grown. Step 2 is that they get cleaned, and then to the extractor, and then to the bottling process. The last step is the customer enjoying the beverage. Here's a 1944 directory. This gives the address of his house, but not his business address. Well, let's go see what his house looks like. Well, you can kind of see a house back there. Now here we go. This World War II registration shows us the address of the business. Well, I guess it's gone. We're looking for 1127. This empty lot is 1122, and that building right there is 1131, so it's somewhere in between there. Here in 1948, we celebrate the 25th anniversary. It says it's the 25th anniversary of the founding of Bireley's and also the 5th anniversary of its affiliation with General Foods Corporation. In the photo, if everybody's standing in order, then this is Mr. and Mrs. Bireley here. These two would presumably be Mr. and Mrs. Ingalls, and Mr. Ingalls is general manager of the Bireley's division at General Foods. And the guy in the middle is B.C. Olney, and he's the vice president of General Foods. Apparently the cake is a miniature of the plant with details on the cake like a small truck loaded with tiny oranges at the receiving door. 1 year later, in 1949, there's an article that says, franchise to sell Bireley's bottled beverages in Los Angeles has been sold to the Pepsi-Cola Bottling Company in Los Angeles. It says this marks the end of Bireley's participation in the bottling field. The company will confine its activities to manufacturing concentrates on a national basis. It says, with the sale of the franchise will go all of the Bireley's vending machines now out on lease or contract basis. There are approximately 200 coin-operated drink machines used by the Bireley brand in this area. It says 2 months ago, Bireley's changed over from milk-type bottle to a conventional beverage bottle. Before the switch, the Bireley bottle could not be used in vending machines due to its size. It also says that the firm has 4 flavors at this point: orange, grape, pineapple, and berry. And it will stay 5 cents a bottle. So that dates the milk bottles from about 1935-ish until about 1948. The regular soda bottles would begin to date right at the beginning of 1949. So here's the 1950 census. He's 50 now, and they have 1 more son. 1954, here's a little write-up about how the Bireley's Bowling League is doing this season. 1954 also kicked out a few more ads for Bireley's. These are all from Life magazine, all during 1954. In 1955, this article says that one of Frank's sons is home on leave before entering technical training at Shepherd Air Force Base. Skip ahead to 1960, and Frank Bireley died at the age of 61. One source said that he had a heart attack, and another source said that he had a stroke. Here's a photo of the plant in 1963. Bireley's slowly disappeared as time went on. By the 90s, most of the world had discontinued it, except for Thailand and Japan. Thailand dropped it about 2014. Japan is the only place where you can find Bireley's now. Here's a few examples that I found online. And that is going to be it for this one. That was all I could squeeze out of this story. That was a bad dad joke, wasn't it? This one was pretty interesting though. I had a lot of fun with it. I hope you all had a great day, and I'll see you on the next one.